Hi, in this video we will talk about how to draw a line chart using ggplot, and then we will also look at customizing the chart so that they can be made ready for your presentations or your documents. So let's get started. The only library which we will need is the package ggplot. If you haven't installed that, you could install it from packages and install. Now we would need some data to run our charts. I would be using the built-in data sets. As you know that there are a number of data sets which are available within R, and I can see all of them here. And there's a bit of an explanation on the right hand side as well. So one of the built-in data sets is called empty cars. We'll be using that for plotting our charts. So before we go any further, let's have a look at what empty cars look like. So empty cars has some data for these cars. So MPG, miles per gallon, cylinders, number of cylinders, displacement, horsepower, etc. And if you notice that the first column is actually not a column in the data set, it's actually the row name. So each row has its own name, and the names of the cars have been used as the row names. In fact, we can use the row names within our ggplot as an x-axis. So let's get started. Now we're ready for plotting. So as you know that we are going to use ggplot, and we're going to use the data set which is empty cars. So here we go. We say that I'm going to use the ggplot. The data is empty cars, which is one of the built-in data sets which we just viewed. And for X, we're going to use the row names of the data set empty cars. As we promised that we'll be plotting a line chart, so we'll be using the geomline geometry, which is geomline AES-Y, because we would like to plot the miles per gallon in this case. And finally, we just print it. So let's run this chart and see if anything comes up. Okay, so we have something happening on the plot. We got a basic plot there, but we can't see any line charts up there. And the reason for that is we would need to do a statement called group equals 1. Now, just that statement is going to make a difference, and you would see that the line chart has been plotted. Very basic chart, not much details, and a lot of things which needs adjustment. So let's start doing adjustments one by one. There are some built-in themes within ggplot. So once you install the ggplot package, you would have some built-in themes available to you. One of the themes is themes BW. So I have called that within my plot statement, and you see that the chart has changed. Let's try another one, which is called theme classic. And there's a different version of the chart now plotted. There is also another library which is specifically dedicated to themes, library GG themes, that gives a lot of other facilities plus a lot of other themes as well. So you can look at what commands are available. There are a number of other available commands in there, and also some new chart themes as well. So one of the themes which I'm going to use is the theme economists. And notice that I've actually put the name GG themes in the front. It's not necessary, but just for the sake of making a distinction that I'm using a theme which has actually come from the GG themes library. So if you never install the GG themes library, this theme would not be available to you. So let's run this library as well as the plot. So the library gets loaded and the plot should be done. We notice that the plot is a bit different from the previous one. There's a light gray boundary around that, and that's the result of the theme economist white. Now, what if I wanted to change the color of the plot, the color of the line? I would like to make it as red color, so I'll give a color statement. Those of you who prefer to use the spellings of color as COLOR, they can use that, and you can also use COLOUR if you like. Both of them do the same thing. Now let's make some adjustment to the x-axis. So one of the problems with the x-axis is that the car names have been printed there, but they're garbled because they're pretty long. One way to fix that is by adding axis.text.x element text angles equals 40, angles equals 90. So what we're telling is that we're telling to the theme that, look, we want to modify the axis text for the x-axis, and this is the way of representing the specifications for the text, saying the element text should have an angle of 90 degrees and its h just equals 1. H just stands for horizontal justification. Let's see what it does for us. You can see that the x-axis text has been rotated 90 degrees, and you can see it's actually justified at the top. Now, what if I change this to 0? Would anything happen? Okay, so this has now justified at the bottom. So we are happy with this for our example. Let's move further and start making some changes. Y-axis looks okay, but just for the sake of making some changes, I would change the y-axis text to with an angle of 45 degrees and v justification of 1. Let's see what it results into. You can obviously experiment with different values of adjust and vjust to see how the text moves up or down in your charts. Now, the chart looks a bit reasonable from when we started with just the basic chart. To make it more informative, you might have to put some title up there. So title is quite easy. There's a labs command there. Labs stands for labels. So I'm saying title equals, this is the title of your plot. When I plot it, you would see that something has come up right at the top, which is your title. And below the title, there's another line which is called the subtitle. So you can again use the labs command or the label command and give a subtitle there. So if I highlight the whole chart script and run, you would see a new subtitle there. There's also something called as the caption. So caption is normally at the bottom of your chart. So if I run it, you would see that the caption has been printed at the bottom. What if we wanted to, because this name is very long, what if we wanted to split it into 2 lines? You can quite easily do that. All you have to do is just put a \n. And for that matter, you can put that \n anywhere in your title, in your subtitle, or anywhere you have your text. You can simply put a \n and it'll be typed or printed into 2 different lines. Good. So you can see that you have 2 different separate lines now because of the virtue of /n being put after long. So the text is appearing on the chart. The chart seems to be a bit more reasonable than when we first started. The last thing which we might have to do is just to change the titles which come on both sides, on the X and the Y axis. And again, we can use the labs command for that. So I'll insert a labs command up there. So I'm saying the labels X should be cars and the Y should be miles per gallon. So you have your chart plotted, and you can see, let me zoom it out so that we can see how the chart is looking like. So it looks quite okay. We have the title, subtitle, our Y and X-axis titles, and the text on the Y-axis, X-axis has been rotated 90 degrees, and our caption is actually in 2 lines, and that's what we wanted. Okay, let's start playing some more with the chart. What if I wanted to have the text? What if I wanted to show the values of each item there? I can put a text command. I'm saying that I need to plot the geom text, and Y should be MPG. So everywhere, wherever the value, whatever is the value of the MPG, I want to have a label which is the value of the MPG itself. You could obviously change it to something else if you want, and I want the color equals blue. And if I run it, we have the value of the MPGs being shown. Let me zoom it up. So it looks quite reasonable. There is also a library called, or a package called GGPLOT, which is quite useful when you have very crowded points being plotted on your chart. You can use this package, and that'll take care of your the crowding of the, or overwriting of the points. You can't really appreciate it at this stage because all the points seems to be quite separated. But if you had a chart where the points were very close together, you would see that GGPLOT can do a much better job of handling it. So only thing which you got to do is you got to, instead of putting the geom text, you can put geom text repel, and that takes care of separating them a bit. So it just, okay, so here we go. Our chart looks quite good for the time being. There's few other things which we can do in the chart. Is what if I wanted to annotate my chart with something? So annotation is something like, what if I wanted to annotate, what if I wanted to create a rectangle around this point somewhere? So I'm saying that the x min or the y min would be 7,28, and x max and y max would be 11 and 35, and the fill of the rectangle should be red colored, and I'm using a transparency of 0.1. So alpha equals 0.1 would provide a transparency to the rectangle which I'm going to create in this chart. Okay, so we have a nice rectangle, and this was given by our x min, y min, and x max, y max. So x min and y min being this point, and x max and y max being the point at the top right hand corner. Now, how do I get x min equals 7? So basically it's if you start counting each point on your x-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that tells me that this is going to start over there, and then 7 is going to finish at X. So you simply count your x-axis points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the first one being 1, and then you start counting forward. Similarly, we can do some more changes. So the annotate command offers few other things as well. And one of the things could be you might want to put some text up there. So notice that in the first one, I called it annotate rectangle. And in the second line, I'm saying annotate text. And the location of the text should be 11 and 32. So 11 on the x-axis and 32 on the y-axis. So I would assume somewhere here. And I want to print the word high. And the color of that writing should be purple. Okay, so the chart shows a rectangle, and there is wording has been placed which is high. I'll leave it at that, and I'll move further. And what if I wanted to draw a line in using the annotate? You could also do the same thing. You could annotate it with a segment. Segment is referring to a line, so the line should start from 13, 32, and the line should finish at 18, 34. So starting over there somewhere on 13, 32, 13 being on the x-axis and 32 being on the vertical or the y-axis, and similarly ending at somewhere on 28 and 34. Let's see how it goes with the segment. You can see that a line or a segment has been placed from there to there. There's another way of annotating, and let me try that as well. So another type of annotation is the annotation with a point range, and that's an example of that. Let me run it before I explain. So the point range has created a point or a dot at coordinates 7, 30. So x equals 7, y equals 30. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 30. So this is a point which has been created, and a vertical line has been extended from y, the minimum value of y min equals 1, and right up to y max 30. So this is y min and this is y max. So that's another way of creating an annotation in this chart. As promised, let's talk about how to plot multiple lines in the ggplot. The better way of handling it is to convert your data into a long data table, which is achieved by using the melt command. And before we get into it, let's review what we have seen in empty cars. So I'll call it, and you can see that it has multiple data points: mpg, cylinder, displacement, hp, etc., etc. So if you wanted to plot all of them on a chart, you would either have to give multiple geom lines and then change the values there. For example, in the earlier chart we plotted, we used geom line and we said y equals mpg, and in the next one we said y equals cyl, and in the next you might actually say y equals disp, etc. But it takes a lot of time to add all those, and then you also have to worry about the legends and so the best way is to do it slightly differently, and that is by using the melt command. We would melt it first. So what I mean by melt is see how the data is actually spread across. So it's kind of a wide data. And if you see the next command, which is loading the library reshape 2, and if you don't have it, you would have to install it using packages and install packages. And one other library which I wanted to load was library deployer. And here is a command which is going to melt this data. So we're converting this empty cars as metrics and then melting it and then converting into a data frame. So I know it's a lot of text, but if we run it, you would see that we have a data frame called my empty cars. And if we look at it, you would find that it's actually a long data frame. So the first variable, or the variable 1, is the names of the cars. And in the second variable, you have these data points. So instead of a wide table, this has become a long table where you can see MPG and cylinder and displacement. So if you think of it, it has actually transposed itself into a long table, and the corresponding values are in front of the each variable. So the value is the numbers which have been in this table against each particular row and each particular data point. So we only have 3 columns in our table. Remember, VAR, variable 1, variable 2, and value. If we wanted to plot all of them, we could, but just to keep the sanity of the chart, I would just want to plot 2 or 3 points in our final plot. So I'm converting, or I'm filtering my empty cars, which is this one, which has a lot of variables for all of them. I just want to pick the variables which are MPG, CYL, and HP. So if I run this command, so let me run all the 4 commands together. So you would end up with my plot data. So if you look at it, my empty cars has 352 observations, whereas my plot data has only 96, because it has only kept the 3 variables in the MPG, cylinders, and horsepower. And we can have a look at that. Okay, now we are ready to plot these 3 points. So again, I would call GGPLOT, and this time my data is my plot data, and the variable for the x-axis is variable var1. Var1 is nothing but the names of the cars. In the next line, I'm calling geom line, and this time you can appreciate that there's only one geom line, and the y is the y equals value, and value is this field, and the color, because we would want different colors for each line, so we are saying the color is being controlled by variable 2. So in effect, the color is being controlled by variable 2. So MPG plot will have different color compared to the cylinder or compared to the horsepower. And again, we would say the group equals variable 2 as well. Similarly, we can also put the points which we placed earlier also. So we would have a line as well as a point. So again, y equals value and the color equals var2. So that's good enough for a plot, but we would put the rest of the information as well, which we had in the previous. So I'll quickly put the value geom text repel, and I'll bring back all the other customizations which we did in our chart, the angle of the x-axis and y-axis and the titles and the subtitles, etc. So if I run this chart now, okay, so it has given us a very busy chart. Let me blow it up or zoom it up. Okay, here we got 3 lines. One is a green line, one is a red line, one is a blue line, and we also have the individual points being shown up there. It's looking good, but only one thing is that the legend has been plotted, so we can see MPG is the red line, cylinders is the green, and HP is the blue line. But we don't like what's coming up at the top. We would want to change it or also change the position of that. What if we wanted this legend right at the top? So there's 2 ways of doing it. I would put it somewhere here, and I will say that the legend dot position is top, so the legend has to be at the top. So the legend has gone at the top, but we still need to get rid of this. Another line comes into play, and we are saying that legend.title equals element blank. That means nothing. We don't want to see anything as a title. So this is our final chart. It has all the elements which we wanted. It looks good. It looks, it has all the information. Multiple lines have been plotted. So you can appreciate that making it long has helped us in a big way. All we have to do is just provide one set of line and points, and then based on what you wanted to plot, you could actually control it up from there. So this is a better way of controlling multiple line charts. And with that, we come to the end of this video. Please support us by subscribing to our videos and also liking this video. Thank you very much.